Do you have a problem finding a who's a what's it? Maybe a thingamajigger? Well, come on over to Crazy Hal's Emporium of Weirdness. Welcome to Perfect Faraday. This is Jeremiah and Mr. George.
Yeah, it was a little weird. Welcome back to another episode of Perfect Faraday. Today we're going to be talking about Made in America and some of the pieces of the recipe that need to be in place to make this a possibility and how we fix these things. So we try to be a show about solutions and talk about the things that matter to us. And sometimes we get deep down the rabbit hole and off track a little bit, but what we do for a living is all about Made in America. It's about supporting American manufacturing. Everything we do, my whole life has been really dedicated to my country, really. Not that I haven't made a living off of it. Of course, I've made a living and provided for myself. I'm not a rich man, but by any means. But, well, I guess maybe compared to the rest of the world, we're all wealthy. But
You're in the 1%?
yeah, I mean, we're all in the 1% in the United States compared to the rest of the world. But I am really excited to talk about this topic today because I think we're going to start trying to do a few more of these Made in America, how they work, and some of the nuances of it. Because every time we run into a problem, it seems like that people just want to throw money at it. They're just like, and not that things don't cost money to fix and you have to hire people and do things to make things right. Not that they don't cost money, but you can't just simply spend money to solve a problem. You have to actually fix the problem. You have to focus and root out the root cause of it and create systems that prevent it and maintain it and make it good, right? So what we're going to talk about today is standards, and that might sound like a boring topic, but I want to try to connect with the audience a little bit and help give them an understanding from a consumer's point of view as to the frustrations and what we're missing on our side on the industrial side of things in manufacturing, and not just manufacturing, but just industrial equipment and controls in general, these industrial systems from power and water and your gas and everything, and all of the big things that keep the machine going for us, keep food coming to us, and keep the power on. So I wanted to show an image that might strike home for a lot of people. And yeah, that's just one. That's a nice, neat, laid out image. I like that, of the different types of connectors, and there's much more than that out there that you might be dealing with at home, right? So you're thinking to yourself, yeah, I've probably seen most or all of these. They're not that uncommon. Different type of charging cables. I think everybody's had that frustration. Everybody's had this frustration where it's like, oh man, this isn't the right cable, or you get a different device, and you're like, why can't they just make them all the same? Why can't they have the same charging cable? And sometimes you might hear this excuse like, oh, they can't be the same charging cable because it's a different kind of device or whatever. And no, that's not true. It can use the same. Most of the stuff could use the same charging cable. Take it from us, a place that works on hardware and stuff, is that most devices actually could use the same charging cable. And the charging cable could be both a data and a charging cable, like many of your phone charging cables are today. And there's no reason why it couldn't be that way for all of the phones currently in use. So,
well, phone-wise, yeah.
Yeah, phone-wise. And then you've got, other devices as well that could use that. For anything that could charge off a USB cable could also use that as well. But what we've been doing for a while now here is like this place comes up with a new design so they can sell their thing, and instead of there being a standard, you got like 9 different cables to deal with, and you end up having to spend more money, and it's a waste. You can't use that old cable until it's broken or wore out or whatever, and then you might replace it then. Instead, you just end up not using that old cable at all, or you have to have 3 or 4 or 5 or however many different cables. Here in our line of work, Jeremiah has definitely let me know he's sick and tired of seeing the amount of cables. And my wife, like my box of cables that I keep, that I've kept since I was like 18, and I throw in HDMI and VGA cables and all different kinds of adapters and all these things that I've accumulated over the years, and I don't throw it away. Now, it's a little bit of a messy box or whatever, and I have to dig through it and stuff like that because I just, throw stuff in there. I'm like, I don't, I'm just going to hold on to this because I never know when I'm going to need it, and I'm sure all of you have heard it. But so I think it's a small box. What my wife sees is this right here.
Yummy.
She sees a mountain of cable.
I wouldn't mind having that if that's all copper.
Yeah,
that'd be a lot of money.
Take that down to the scrapyard, yeah. Yeah, I see a lot of cable in there, about as tall as the trees in the background. So what I want to do here is kind of give you guys an idea of sort of what we're dealing with in manufacturing on the industrial side and what it is that we're facing that's a hindrance to efficiently growing the manufacturing sector and to have more places that manufacture and make things here in America. And one of the things that we're facing that we weren't facing in the 50s and 60s that we are facing now, because I've worked on the older equipment too. I worked on a lot of the older equipment, and I love working on the older equipment because I can work on a machine I've never touched before, walk up to it, older piece of equipment, and I'll be like, I know how this works. Because there was a standardization to how things were done. And that's a big, big step in the right direction. The whole reason that we had the sort of revolution that we had in the turn of the century and this industrial revolution that came out of was because of standardization. So in the past, you might buy a gun, a musket, right? You might go hunting with, and you might have to buy your iron balls from the same person because they knew the right size for that thing. But the bore in your gun was different than the bore in the gun that your neighbor had or this or that. And what allowed us to like...
So do you suppose there's anybody alive that, gets that reference, because they had that hardship?
Yeah. Yeah, I've worked for a few guys that might get that reference. But
Casey Jones or
something. Yeah. So around the turn of the century, what we had was this change, and we started standardizing a lot of things, and so we had a lot of the same bearing sizes and stuff like that. But prior to that, it was more for us, the consumer. We're all consumers. Us for the consumer to make it easier to say, oh, okay, so I bought this thing. Like if you went and got your car and there was 32 different types of fuel out there, and you bought a car and you could only use one type of fuel, that would be rather irritating, especially if it wasn't widely available. And so people kept facing these same sort of issues of this isn't widely available, and there was no competition in it because this one thing they were only going to make so many of them because it was a smaller part of the market, but they really owned that piece of the market, and there wasn't no competition because nobody was going to come in and make something that was the exact same size and everything. So we lacked the standardization, and who suffered? Well, it's not just us, the consumer, it's the producer as well, because what's happened is that same concept applies on the industrial side. So most of the machinery equipment, there's almost no machine makers, builders in the United States. There's very, very few. Yeah, they died out a long time ago.
I guess before you dive into the industry thing, can you go back to the graphic?
What, the pile of wires?
No, the other one.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
I just wanted to kind of dig into that. So that first one's USB, that you'd plug into your computer, which has been pretty generic for charging and that, right? Maybe some data transfer for low speeds. Second one's Ethernet, which has been used forever. The throughput's been increased over time with mostly shielding. USB-C is a great one. It's used for charging, for data, for video. The next two are video. HDMI has changed its standard about 3 times. I'm going through this to say how crazy all this is. I have a point to it. I'm not trying to dig too deep into all of it, but HDMI is on like 3.0, and that'll be for like 8K TVs, and then what is it, Thunderbolt afterwards? I can't read that
Yeah,
one.
it's Thunderbolt.
I don't know a whole lot about Thunderbolt, but you can do video. I don't think you can charge on that. None of the video ones you can push power across. Forget Apple's stupid little connector there, because I don't care what they're doing. They're one of the worst as far as proprietary stuff. I'm just kidding. Like data, charging, video.
Yeah.
That's the old school USB after that, right?
Yeah, that's the
for
mini
charging mainly and data.
Both of them are a little bit older now. B and A.
What's the one after that?
A, USB Mini A.
Yeah. And then obviously your old, crap, I can't remember what that connector's called.
Just headphones and microphone.
Mini DIN or something like that.
Yeah.
What's amazing is the third one over is the future, and it covers all of those cables. USB 4, especially in the USB-C standard, can go up to like 80 watt charging for like laptops that you want to use while you're charging.
Yeah.
That's where like you need like cables that can pull a lot of power. You know,
And
on the consumer end.
That's the C, right? The USB-C?
Yeah. But the USB 4.0 standard, I think goes up to like 80 gigabytes per second, like throughput, which would cover your video. You can obviously use it as a headphone jack, a microphone jack. Like it'll be a jack of all trades. And
So and everybody think about that for a second, guys. I'll circle this right here. So USB-C. Wouldn't it be nice? And I'm sure you guys have even more cables at home than what you're even seeing here laying around. I'm sure because I do, and I still have to swap this and that. Wouldn't it be nice if it was just this?
yeah.
Wouldn't it be nice if you had to have one cable?
Well,
maybe
you
you
didn't
got a
have
few
to
different
think about what
lengths.
port to put it in too.
Yeah,
How about that, you know?
yeah. And to me, I just think it's a much better way of going about
And
this.
you know, as much as we like think other countries are convoluted compared to us, you know who was like really trying to get behind, like mainly for the echo stuff, but like I don't mind it. The European Union or whatever, like they're trying to force manufacturers, if they want to sell stuff, to stick to like push Apple to not use their stupid little
Yeah,
proprietary connection, but to use like USB 4 since it's a more open standard or whatever. Not just Apple, like that was just an example. There's quite a few, like they're pushing regulation. I'm not about like government being in everything, but
yeah. Neither one of
I
us
think I
are.
don't mind on stuff like that. Like,
Well, there's got to be an accepted standard, and I mean, you just gave a wonderful example and reason why, right there. Now, what people don't understand about a lot of the stuff that we do is that it's much, much more complicated than your video cable that you're selecting, right?
Oh yeah.
I mean, guys, we're dealing with robotics. We're dealing with big pieces of equipment that I mean, people's jobs rely on. And I mean, when I say rely on, right, for this manufacturing throughput, and everything breaks. Everything's going to break. Everything's going to fail at some point or another from use and abuse, whatever it is. And that's why we exist. And when you lack the standards in it, there's no one person. I've been doing this for over 20 years now. There is no one person that's going to have the full scale of knowledge. Now imagine that list, and I'll click it back over again so people can kind of put it in their heads for a second. Now imagine this list, guys. Imagine this list, and now take this list and multiply it by 30, okay? Multiply that by 30. Those number of cables that you're currently seeing on your head, and just imagine a bunch of them. Now, each cable represents a piece of software for a particular, what we call a PLC or HMI, okay? It's the brain of the machine, okay? To simplify.
The brain of the machines that make everything.
Yeah, exactly. It replaces relay logic. The problem with that is now you have people that not only have to know how the machinery works and functions and electrically troubleshoot the normal stuff, like a failed relay. Everybody's heard of relays, I'm sure, or a motor. People know what motors are. And not just those specific components that are common to everything, but now in order to go what we call going online and troubleshooting a problem, a deeper issue, and communicating with it and seeing what's going on, Now you need to know that many, 30 times that what you see, pieces of software. Okay?
Yeah, I mean,
It's
you're
impossible.
giving an
It's
example,
impossible.
but I would say it's far more than that.
Yes, I'm being conservative.
Yes.
I'm being very, very conservative when I say this. So it's not just about the, cables and everything like that. This is on the consumer end. You guys think this is a headache? Imagine how difficult it is to train people, to retain people, to, do your uptime and your downtime. In this current market, this current labor market, man, it takes years to get good at this. The smartest guys I know didn't get good at this day one. Nobody's a natural to this. Okay, it's not that. It doesn't work that way. Some people have natural talent towards being able to troubleshoot. Some people have natural talent because they're very logical and they can think things out and stuff, and a good memory, and it works together really well. And that makes a person naturally better suited for this type of work. But you don't come out of the gate being good at this type of work. Yeah. It's just not that way because there's too much to learn. And I mean, you know how it is. When you first started with me, I knew that you could program.
Yeah.
You couldn't program a PLC. You couldn't program an HMI just blank, not having any idea what it did, what its function was, how an input works or an output works. You had a really good backbone understanding, though, of architecture, communication, memory bits. And I mean, I've learned things from you. I've been in this field longer than you have, and I've learned a lot of stuff from you.
Yeah.
And I think that we need to start standardizing. And I'm not saying forced, because I don't like government involvement in almost anything. Okay, I really don't. But I think that there may be there may be a little bit of a need in this area to say, like, okay, we're phasing in this thing. Any machines sold into America have to meet these standards, have to meet and you can give it a range. Like, it's got to be one of these three cables. The way you talk to it has to be one of these, pieces of software or something like that or whatever. And I know that part might be impossible. That might be pie in the sky for me. But what we're dealing with here is it's a hodgepodge mess of things from all over the world, old machinery, new machinery. I have nothing against using old machinery and stuff and getting it's productivity and stuff like that, as much out of it as you can. That's a wonderful thing. But I think that we need to start looking at accepting standards, right? Yeah. So, and there'll be make it a gold star standard for this is rated as the most maintainable, equipment or machinery or item out there. And maybe that kind of thing could extend towards consumer stuff too. But you have a standard of, okay, the prints are available. This is the color of wiring we used in it. This is we followed this standard, and our prints are done up the same way, so that because a lot of people don't realize is that it's very difficult for a person who's learning to read prints when they're handed European style prints. Yeah. You give them something out of Germany and they're like, holy cow, the book on it's that thick. You're going through all the pages and going back and forth, and you're just like, whoa. And for some of us who've been in it for a while, it's not so daunting. But that's because I started with the old stuff first. I know how the things are supposed to be laid out and everything. So in my mind, I kind of already have a picture. I'm just looking for where that point connects in between, so I can jump around pretty quickly now. But that took years to get there. Yeah. You're not picking that up right out of the bat. But the old style prints, I could teach just about anybody with just a little bit of intelligence that how to read an old American standard print, ladder style print. I could sit down with them and say, you follow this line right here, and when this closes, it's going to allow the power through, and it's going to turn this thing on. And they go, oh, well, heck, that's not that hard. But when you spread that print, like in European prints, who spread that out over 50 pages or 300 pages. We've worked on some stuff with a ridiculous amount of just over complexity. Doesn't need to be there. And I believe that it is a hindrance to the desire for us to manufacture in America. And I think it's really hamstringing us. That's why I wanted to talk about it, because I was like, we're about made in America, and that's, how do we solve these problems? How do we have these discussions? Who is it that we need to talk to make this happen?
Now that I'm thinking about it, maybe not getting the government involved, because obviously bureaucracy always wants to, make itself, keep self-replicating, keep making a bunch of positions that aren't necessary. I mean, the UL is kind of a standard, right? And they've become so completely ridiculous, but their main purpose is for safety.
Certification.
Yeah.
They're not just they're not a standard, they're a certification with standards.
But what was Roger was telling me the other day, that basically, for the most part, they don't care about this or that or how something's done. It's like the power load or the power distribution, and the stuff's not heated. I mean, fundamentally.
Yes.
But having dealt with a UL inspector, I know that they can be arbitrarily way more picky about stuff.
Yeah, they can kind of go off on tangents on stuff.
But yeah, that's what I'm saying. So how do we get together as, I guess it would maybe more of a privatized, with the right direction, saying, hey, follow our standards. Because, video compression has a standard, that you don't want to think about, but devices wouldn't even know how to decode your video if they didn't follow that, So why can't we do that with more tangible stuff, and not just software? That was an example. I know there's other stuff that it has to work, it has to follow a particular standard, or it's just not going to work. But it seems like the digital front is the only one I can think of now. Yeah, people will still try to do their proprietary stuff, but they don't flourish as much.
No, they don't. They don't. That's
why Sony stopped doing a lot of their abusive proprietary stuff, was because they realized they were actually losing money in a lot of their stuff. I think they had to sell some of their divisions off.
It's like infrastructure, right? It's like infrastructure. Blah. It's like infrastructure to the thing that we're working on or with or entertainment or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
And why do I want to go traveling on some back road somewhere that I don't know my way around, when this road right here is well traveled, well known, has gas stations on it?
Yeah.
Like with the cables, I know I can get this cable at a gas station if my cord breaks or whatever easily, and those are the things that we're going to do, right?
Yeah.
We're going to go that route, and the competitiveness for it is going to drive down the price, and you're going to have competition in that market for all goods. And that's why I really want to do this for standardization, because what happens is, in manufacturing, the more efficiently you make things, what you do is you create a higher standard of living for everybody. It's just, when people think of automation, they're thinking robots and that's part of automation, but they're thinking AI and all kinds of crazy stuff, and they're thinking stuff and they're not thinking about a conveyor belt running something down, and that's automation as well. And they don't go back in time, and they don't think about the changes in productivity. All it is an increase in productivity. That's all it is, okay? That's what automation brings, is increases in productivity. It's the same with farming. If we went back 100 years, we wouldn't be able to support the current population of the planet.
Yeah.
We wouldn't. The technology didn't exist, okay?
Yeah.
And now we are where we are now, and we can feed everybody with less people working in that field. A much smaller percentage of the population has to grow food now to feed everybody, which is amazing. So if a sliver of the population takes care of the food, and a sliver of the population can produce and manufacture the things, then what you raise the standard of living for everybody by doing that. And that's why I'm really big on automation. I'm really big about making it in America. And it's not just for made in America. I want Italy to make their own stuff. I want Germany to make their own stuff. I want England to make their own stuff. As much as they possibly can, I want them to be able to manufacture the goods that they need within their country, because it enriches themselves. It helps to enforce their culture. it makes them stronger and more independent. And then when, knuckleheads like Putin pops off and starts doing crazy stuff, and they're energy independent and they can make their own stuff and they're strong, they're not subject to the same sort of global pressures and outside forces. And that's important for America too. That's very important for America. I mean, look at the gas prices and our entire life has been driven up and down by outside forces. I want us to be as strong and independent as possible, but in order for us to get there, we have to be able to bring back manufacturing. And I believe this is one of the keys to fixing it, to going and fixing the machine, because we've ripped out so much of it now, and there's just little pieces here and there that are still holding on and working and chugging along and trying to do their thing, and they're clinging on and stuff. Yeah. And I'm sitting here looking at this, and I'm like, there's no machine manufacturers in the United States. All of our customers are buying stuff from Germany and Italy.
I have a question
China.
Because I know we've talked about it a lot. Can you think of any advantage to making a system more complex?
Oh, gosh, no. I know.
Not even one?
Okay, a greedy reason maybe. Greedy reason, like you want to sell parts and service, you want them to be reliant on you. I feel like that's an underhanded reason.
I can think of redundancy in some stuff, like having two power supplies if one fails or something
That's not the same thing as complexity to me.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying having more parts and pieces, you know? Like, I'm not talking about the overall, like, complexity of the functionality.
Yeah.
It's funny. So I didn't bring it up last week, but I think it kind of plays into this. Do you know what in this world has like the most chromosomes?
No. Is it a worm or?
No, it's a plant. I can't even pronounce it. It's Ophioglossum I'm going to leave it in the bottom. Reticulatum. It has 1,400 chromosomes. We have what, 52, right? Because it's 26 chromosome pairs.
That's insane.
It can't survive like hardly anywhere. It needs a very like meticulous environment. That's another system, right? So it has a whole lot of inputs and outputs that get thrown off by stuff, you know?
That's
I always think of stuff in systems, but like I read that a long time ago. I was like, like obviously complexity in nature also is not like, you know.
Well, in our field, we simplify a lot of machines for people actually. In our field, one of the things is that and maintenance guys, I came out of maintenance, worked in maintenance for a long time. Maintenance guys love us because one of the things is that we eradicate unnecessary complexity in what we're doing. And people can really appreciate that, especially when you have to work on it because everything does break. Well, one of our kind of mottos has been to simplify things, because the more things you have in there, the more chances it has to break. I think your chromosome point kind of plays into that pretty well. Is that the more complexity you add into something, the more opportunity it has for failure. The more opportunities can exist to make it fail. That doesn't mean you can be completely minimalist, because you want you want enough safety and monitoring and stuff like that in place, and like automation, for example, so that it corrects. That's really what automation does. It corrects. It's constantly correcting, like our bodies do. When it gets hot, we sweat to try to cool down. When we get real cold, we shiver to warm back up again. Our bodies is an automated system. Our bodies just have these automatic responses that we don't think about them. They happen on their own. And that's what automation is in manufacturing. It's just, I need to be at 10 foot in the tank. There's a level detector in that tank, and a pump comes on until I get to 10 foot, and then it shuts off. Yeah. Right? And we have these automatic things, and as the tank gets drained down, it comes back on, it fills back up again. And we have these automatic, and that's really the basis of automation, is just these feedback loops, right? Yeah. So don't add a whole bunch of extra things in there and leave a little bit of room for error and stuff like that, depending on the process and what you're making, of course. And you have to think longevity. Like, I want to build this machine, and 100 years from now, somebody go, man, this guy did a really good job building this machine. You want it to outlive you. You want these things to outlive you, because they require large capital investments. They require a lot of money to do. I mean, several of our recontrols have been north of 6 figures, and that's not a complete machine build.
Yeah.
And most of that went into materials. Most of that went into the motors and gearboxes and drives and everything else that goes into that. And then our time and our programming and everything like that. But I look at these systems now and I shake my head and I'm like, why? Why do we have 20 different cables? Why are we doing it like this? Why?
Yeah.
And now that I understand these things, and I've been on the inside of these things, I've seen so many different programs, and now you have too, and got to kind of experience this a lot. There's no good reason why. There's none. There's none at all. All this added complexity, all these different well, they're not even standards, just all these different ways of going about and doing it and everything like that. It offers no value.
So I mean, I guess we're still working on it, but the line that we just like completely controlled, well, I guess I did because I actually fully wrote the code this time. What was it? Maybe 50 lines of code?
Yeah.
And I made the screen and it has a reset, start, and then it just has indicators showing them like what fails, you know? Like, that's something that drives me crazy with a lot of OEM stuff, like at least on the user end. You know, the person that's going over there to like start a machine, they don't need to know every little like Duma Flitchy, you know, like back end thing, you know.
Yeah.
A lot of maintenance people don't even use a lot of the stuff that they put on the you know, the customer facing part of a line, you know. So that would be some of my frustration I've seen. You know, like from people, you know, and they seem to like, you know, our interface. So like, as much as I'll rag on Apple because of a lot of their business practices, like they came to fame because they simplified stuff for people. Mm-hmm. Now I think it's more of a status symbol, you know, like people like, oh, I have Apple phones. Maybe not as much here, you know, in America. Yeah. Certainly overseas, but yeah, like here in America sometimes, you know, I've met people like that, but you know, like
people fight you about the phone
like,
you get.
Like that's really how they kind of rose up. And was it? Steve Wozniak, you know, was all about efficiency, you know, in the early stages of Apple, right? He was able to take circuitry, what was it, in the Atari or the arcade cabinets, and like, you know, take something that was like this big and get the same thing, you know, down into like as few resistors as he could. And, you know, then he moved, you know, got with his friend Steve Jobs, and, you know, he was the more charismatic, you know, like, I don't care, I want to get this, you know, I want this, you know, like, which he was a jerk, but he did get things done, you know, like in such a way that, you know, wasn't overly complex, you know, at least not on the user's end. So
yeah, I kind of want to segue into, you know, I've probably kind of hinted at it, said it a little bit from the beginning. I kind of want to segue into what do you think, like maybe we could kind of propose a few answers. How do you think we could bring this about? What do you think it would take? I'm not looking for government funding. I don't trust the government. I just don't trust that they're going to do anything right.
You're talking on the industry end for us?
Yeah, for the industry thing. Like, do you think that
bunch of guys like us getting together, like, I don't know, like,
do you think that we could, you think that maybe like starting a nonprofit or something like that?
Maybe.
That's based on basically like an open standard or something like that, like some sort of gold star standard for you know, manufacturing equipment, or heavy industrial manufacturing, and you know, water, what's the word I'm looking for, municipality. Yeah, you know, equipment and stuff like that. Do you think that maybe coming up and saying, look, let's sit down, let's hash this out. You know, maybe we have a few like OEM representation or whatever there, talk to some of the guys in the thing and say, hey, look, man, we're willing to talk to everybody. Bring your ideas and let's sit down and let's make this happen. Because the way that it's right now, I don't see it being successful, man. People want to make things in America.
Yeah.
There are people here that if you said, here's the piece of equipment, will buy the piece of equipment to make the thing.
Yeah.
Okay? Because right now it seems like most people are just like you see a lot of people like on YouTube or everything, and they're selling T-shirts and coffee. It's like everybody's got a coffee company, everybody's selling T-shirts, and I'm like, guys, I love coffee. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I really do love coffee. And it's funny T-shirts and stuff like that are kind of funny and everything. They make decent gifts or whatever here and there, but let's start peeling this back and making things that are worthwhile, right? Let's try to open that up so that people that have ideas like, hey, I want to make this product or whatever, can go to their local manufacturers and stuff and actually be able to do that here in the US and say, hey, look, I want to make this device, or I want to make this, different kind of tire or part or consumer good or toothpaste or whatever that is, whatever that looks like to you, and food item, whatever that might be, and make that happen. But the way it is right now, it's much more difficult to get into that. I've heard multiple times now from industry leaders that they had no choice but to have their product manufactured in China. I've heard that multiple times now.
Yeah.
And we support American manufacturing. We do. And my answer to that is that yes, the product you're trying to make is not being made here, but it can be made here.
Yeah.
It can be made here competitively, because people don't realize when you put in the cost of shipping and then the errors. A lot of people don't understand manufacturing nowadays. So when you order stuff, say from overseas or whatever, there's a big lag time because you're ordering a large amount of stuff. It's coming over on shipping containers, and there's sort of a train of items. And when you find an error in the product, on the store shelf, or before it hits the store shelf, you're like, dude, these are wrong, or every 10th one of these is wrong, and it's going to be a very poor reflection on the quality of your product that you're selling. What's going to end up happening is you've not just got this million bad pieces, but razors, shaving razors or whatever. You don't have these million bad razors. You have 10 million bad razors in the supply chain heading your way.
Yeah.
Whereas in the United States, we are very big on quality control. One of the things in American manufacturing, they're huge on quality control, and they always have been. And that spirit has maintained, and I'm glad to see that that's held on, but because that's what we were known for around the world. But now what we have, because we're making so much stuff overseas, what you're really being sold when you think you're buying an American product a lot of times is not an American product at all.
Yeah.
And you've got all that cost backed up. So you think you can't be competitive locally when it's like, oh, well, that costs X amount of dollars more per item. And I'm like, yeah, but you're saving how much money on shipping? And then when you have a quality problem, and there's more complexity to it, there's more nuance to it than that, because you've seen the cheapest products plastic products you could possibly think of made right here in America, and it's like they're printing money.
Yeah.
So we've seen it with our own eyes, and I've seen it through my career, and I'm like, no, it's not true. We can compete, but it's not as simple as that. But let's try to make it simpler. Let's lower that barrier of entry for people that want to be in the industrial space, that want to create something, that want to create American jobs, that want to bring back American manufacturing, where people can invest. Because if you give them something they can understand and say, yes, we got 5 guys over here, there's your maintenance team, they can maintain these machines, they're the same standards as all these things. I don't care if you're making, toilet bowls, or you're making light bulbs, or you're making toothpaste or whatever. The internal guts of these things and the parts that go on these things are all rolled from the same standard. You can go down to the supply house down here and get most of what you need.
Yeah. I think I have a pretty simple solution. We need to decode pi and turn it into a program to be able to devise an interstellar device. Go through a black hole, go forward in time, get the design for a matter replicator, come back, problem solved.
Okay.
I'm being esoteric, but that's just about as ridiculous as like some people's solutions,
Yeah.
for stuff.
Oh yeah, I see your point, man. I see your point.
Graphene, this and that. Well, how are we going to get there? We do need to focus too on like what is attainable. But
yeah,
I also like kind of was funny about that too. Not so much matter replicator. I do think 3D printing in that, like, maybe with more materials or whatever, might be a way for people, on a smaller scale, just a consumer to be able to, put out products.
And the prices come down on that technology, and the quality is improving all the time.
Yeah.
And they stopped making the replacement parts for a hinge on a drive, and a hinge may seem something just completely simple to people, but these drives, there's like 1 million of these drives out there, and they all have the same problem. The plastic they made the hinge out of breaks. Well, there's a HIM module on the front of the panel. It's where the operator can, or the maintenance guy, really, not the operator, can change settings in the drive and stuff like that. Well, if the cable rips out, and what happens is the hinge is breaking, it's hanging by that cable. The cable rips out, the drive will fault, and you can't run the drive. So you got to get the door back in. And you couldn't see, if it did fault, you couldn't see what the fault was to troubleshoot the problem.
Yeah.
So we 3D printed a bunch of these hinges, and the very company that made the drive bought them from us.
Yeah.
About like 80 of them or 100 of them, or actually multiple different times bought them from us and stuff like
over
that.
200 of them that they bought.
Yeah. And what we did was we saw a need. I knew we weren't going to make a ton of money off of it, but it paid for the 3D printer. So, I mean, I'm not going to complain, because it we learned about it. We used it. We learned about different materials, and it educated us on how these things work a little bit. So we created a solution to the problem, because that's what we do. We try to solve problems.
Yeah. I think it's funny you're bringing this up, because I was thinking the other day when I was watching Tim Pool, because they were talking about like being more helpful, like on a local level. But I don't know, maybe we could like set up something on. Does people even use meetups anymore, or like some of that, like to get like minds together, like, and maybe there could be chapters or whatever, like we could come together, like to actually like, I
don't know,
push for change and not just keep talking about it, because I've definitely heard a lot of people talking, but like talking is one thing, like bringing something to fruition, like
how
actually takes action.
Yeah, how do we make this happen? I mean, I think I like the way your mind's going. Yeah. I think we need to take some time. And think about this. I think we need to come up with some solutions, because my mind's rolling around about this, and I'm like, look, my idea is not the best idea. I think I have some good ideas. I'm good at identifying problems. I see the problem. I don't want people to just throw money at a problem. That's not where I'm at with this. I want us to come together and say, look, in order for us to make this happen, in order for us to fix this issue that we have, let's come together and let's discuss this, and let's kind of hash out some of the best ideas possible in moving forward.
I guess in the code sector, the open source movement definitely, like pushed for a lot of, I mean, I wouldn't say like open standards, but a lot of good came out of it, I'm not saying free the code, like I hate that.
Yeah,
But maybe standardize like inputs and outputs, to code, or like don't make it so crazy to talk from one thing to another,
Well,
maybe open standards for communication, like protocols, but not necessarily that you have to have full access to code,
Yeah. I mean, there needs to be,
for sure, and like drives and that, like we would network the heck out of drives if like there was a standard with that, wouldn't we? Like,
yes.
Rather than run like 8 different cables.
Yep. We would just
9 different,
we'd run
wires.
shielded Ethernet cable to each one and be done with it.
Yeah.
That's it. We'd be done with it, man. And that's just one, a drive, for people that don't know. A drive is something that controls the speed, torque, current, a lot of things of the motor. It also monitors it. It can be used for motion control. Drives are used in robots for position control, because there's a motor for every joint in there that's moving to make it go to where it needs to go. So there's feedback telling it the position it's in. The motor moves so much, you can probably imagine this, and that's how you build a robot. That's how you build a 3D printer. That's how you build a big manufacturing machine that makes mattresses. I mean, it doesn't matter what you're talking about. These things all work similarly. The problem that what we have is that we've got 5,000 cables, right?
Yeah.
10,000 different pieces of software. We've got, it's ridiculous. It's gotten out of hand. It didn't used to be where there was this many different, like other people wanted to break into the PLC space and everything like that, which I get it. There's all these different PLC manufacturers and everything, and I'm okay with there being different people. You need competition. I want there to be different people making these things, because I want that competition in there. But I mean, come on, man. I mean, we've got to narrow this down to look. This is it. No more of this. However many pieces of software, because it's only getting worse.
Yeah.
It's not getting better.
Who was that guy that they responded to your super chat that was on the show?
Oh, Peter Navarro.
Yeah.
Peter Navarro. So
if anybody knows Peter Navarro, tell him to watch this episode. Either that or Mike Rowe. I feel like,
I'd love to
those
talk
guys
to Mike Rowe,
would maybe.
Oh yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, that would be wonderful.
Yeah.
But so Peter Navarro was on Tim Pool, and I sent out a super chat in the form of a question to Peter Navarro. I was really happy to see Peter Navarro on there. Like or hate Trump, however you feel about Trump, this isn't a political message whatsoever. I respected Peter Navarro. Okay, I respected the way that he would break down problems, and he was trying to get to the root of the issue. He wasn't looking to just spend money or throw money at a problem. He was trying to bring back American manufacturing. That was his whole thing. Because that was one of Trump's big promises, is like bringing back American manufacturing and stuff. And they made some good inroads in that. I don't think everything was perfect. I'm never going to make that claim. There's presidents do things I like, and they do things, every single one of them do things I like and do things I don't like. Every single one of them. I like to call balls and fouls. That's what I like to do. I just don't like to idolize any of them. Well, Peter Navarro, when I sent that out, he agreed with me. It was like spot on and everything. And I was like, well, it was kind of more of a little bit of a question of how do we get people talking about the technical issues that we're dealing with in American manufacturing, because it's more nuanced. It has things that need to be taken care of that you don't have to spend $1 billion to fix. Yeah. We're not talking about $1 billion, guys. We can start like a standardization sort of nonprofit or whatever, made in American standard, gold standards or something like that on equipment manufacturing or whatever side, and say, look, these are the things that your technicians need to know. These are the skills they need to have. Yeah. Tech 1, 2, and 3, and then these are the skills that your engineer needs to have. Yeah. Your manufacturing or automation engineer
we
needs to have.
We could move toward using parts that fulfill like that, like whatever the vision is,
Yes.
Manufacturers would be more likely, even overseas ones to make more of them, right?
Yep.
If they're selling, it's just how stuff works,
Yeah, the drive thing that you brought up was just like spot on for me, man, because there's so much frustration, guys. Like a lot of people don't understand. There's so much frustration in what we deal with because there's too many different ways that people are doing things. So there's no way to standardize. So especially right now with the problem, the difficulty getting different parts, like there's literally people that are down right now as we speak, waiting for months to be able to get a machine working. If you're wondering why the supply chain is so herky-jerky and such a problem, this is
there are people that understand the supply chain.
Yes. Yes.
It's not a big mystery if you're in it, but that's definitely a message. We've discussed that a little bit. I think that was one of our earlier episodes, but yeah. When the people that make stuff that you buy can't get stuff, we're in trouble. This is a discussion for sure.
Yeah.
That would be great, with other people,
and
before we get too far deep,
And we are definitely in that problem. So, man, I mean, this is a shout out. This is a call out. I really need a little bit. I'm one man, and I'm doing the best I can. I built right now we're recording. Those that have been watching our episodes, might have noticed the change. We're recording upstairs in the classroom that I built. I didn't think I would be building a classroom to teach people 20 years ago. I saw the need for it, and I saw the need rising. I definitely saw it 20 years ago. I was like, oh, wow, there's a definite need for training, because the guys that I looked up to, the older guys that I knew, were very skilled guys in their trades. Skilled welders. If you called yourself a welder, you were a good welder and probably a pretty good fabricator, maybe even a decent machinist. Machinists were really good machinists. They knew their stuff, man. Electricians were really good electricians, and controls electricians, technicians, whatever you want to call them, automation guys, they knew their stuff. But at the same time, there wasn't as many different options, man. You didn't have 30 different manufacturers or 100 different manufacturers of PLCs at the time. It was a handful really that went into everything. So there wasn't so many different things to have to learn. There wasn't so many different pieces of software to have to know. And I think that it's like foundational that we have these discussions and we talk about like standards. And I'm not saying we have to force people into these standards. I mean, maybe eventually we do. Maybe eventually we have to kind of, gently push people in the right direction. But I think a lot of manufacturers would embrace this willingly. Because when you talk about the skills,
I don't think I know a lot of our customers have embraced our approach.
I don't know a single customer of ours that hasn't embraced our approach that would not embrace a standard, right, in machinery and everything like that. Because like what people understand is like parts and replacement things, everything breaks, guys. And right now, because of the supply chain problem, you're looking at your consumer goods not being there. Guys, it is 10 times worse.
Yeah, this
on the
isn't a
industrial
time or
side.
place for greed and proprietariness. Like,
No.
Like, because if the whole system collapses, that.
Yeah, I don't want to be all doom and gloom.
Yeah, I'm not either. But
no. I mean, that
I'm a little
fear,
bit of a realist.
No, that fear has been tickling the back of my head, man. I mean, going back from the one of the first few episodes we did, that fear has really been tickling the back of my brain because I was like, well, I mean, things will straighten themselves out. I was, kind of like hopeful and stuff. I'm like, once things get back up and running again, it'll be better. It'll get better. It's not getting better. It's getting worse. And I'm sitting here going, like, how are we going to survive this in the long run? And when I say long run, I'm talking about the next several decades. I'm not just talking about the next several months or years. I'm talking about the next several decades. How do we recover, and how do we recover in a healthy way that supports American jobs, American manufacturing? These are rewarding jobs. These are good paying jobs. And this helps a lot of people that didn't go to college, some lower skilled people. It gives them a ladder to reach heights that they never would have been able to, because a lot of these guys start on the floor as an operator or a forklift driver, and because they show tentativeness and they show up on time and they're a good worker, the next thing they do, they're a line supervisor, and then the next thing you know, they're a manager, and then they're a plant manager or whatever. And they work their way up, and they're highly respected because they started from the bottom and they worked their way to the top. Those sort of opportunities exist more in the manufacturing sector than anywhere else I see.
Yeah.
So I really honestly, and our manufacturing sector has been gutted. And so the way that I see it is that this solves a lot of problems. It solves a lot of problems in opportunity, and when people talk about equality and those sort of issues, those sort of social issues, well, a lot of that arises from economic issues. And what I want to see is a nice, good sort of answer to that. But in order to fix that, I think we got to talk, man. Yeah. Like we've got to be talking to the right people. And like I said, I'm not looking for a dollar, man. I'm not looking for people to spend their money. I don't want your money for this. I want answers and solutions. Let's come together. Let's start standardizing stuff.
I think it might be in our best interest. We'll probably try to promote this episode in a bunch of places. We haven't really done that a lot because we don't have time. But reach out to us, leave something in the comment, or you can contact us at pffday.com. I think it's contact at, but you could just go to the website. It has all our episodes. You could watch some of our other crazy episodes with this. I don't know. I feel like this is a pretty important episode. We might try to promote it and put it in channels,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm asking you as well as the audience,
see,
I
think you're on the right path. So
yeah.
Here's the thing.
So just reach out to us.
Yeah, reach out to us, please.
Don't sit on
We're
it,
gonna. I'm gonna try to go ahead and promote this episode because I think it's important. It's important to me. It's really important to me, and it's important to my country, and even people that may not realize it. This is very important. And I don't care if you're a plant manager, a CEO, maintenance managers that have got a lot of experience in this kind of stuff. I like to hear from you. I want your input because I don't want the top-down approach to this. I want the people that know how the sausage gets made And I mean, I want the smart people in the room, and I want the investors and the plant managers and the people that are looking to want to do the industrialization stuff. Again, I'm not looking for your money, okay? You spend the money on that piece of equipment that's going to be able to keep you running, that good piece of equipment. You wait and you spend your money where it matters for production and hiring the right people and stuff. I'm not looking for a dime off of this. I'm looking to solve a problem, and this is a big problem. I hope one of the ideas I had before we close, one of the ideas that I had was I was thinking about a marketplace, like an online marketplace, where American manufacturers, people can go and purchase things from just American manufacturers, but American manufacturers can also speak to each other for connecting to each other and pricing and things like that for their products. Because what a lot of people don't realize is that most manufacturers don't make a finished good. Okay, most manufacturers make all the pieces and parts that go into the finished good.
Yeah.
Okay, so you might be a metal stamping place that stamps metal parts that goes into a car or a lawnmower or whatever. Both. You probably make both. You know, or beds or furniture. You probably make all of that as a metal stamping place. Or a non-woven place, you might make insulation that goes into cars and the firewalls in cars to help dampen noise, but you also make an insulation that goes into bedding, right? A fluffier fabric that goes into bedding or whatever. So keeping that in mind, one of the things I've thought about is that if you could connect these things in an easy way, okay, these guys can reach out and say, hey, I want this and I want that. And people are familiar, know what your capacity is. You got to be honest about that. Know what your capacity to produce these things are and stuff. And, you know, that sort of communication chain right there might also be good. And I've thought about that a lot too. It just seems like a very daunting task to create and promote something like that.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe that can be part of this made in America sort of vision. Maybe we can bring that all together. Maybe we can have that place where people can communicate with each other and what they make, and this is our salesperson, this is our billing department, whoever you need their contact information to speak back and forth about that stuff, and also a resource for people to go and learn and say, hey, look, this is the kind of equipment that you want, this is the kind of equipment you want to avoid, and it's not a bias as far as I don't like that piece of equipment. These are the positives, these are negatives, right? This is what you have, because maybe that's the only thing on the market. That's the only thing you can get. And I understand that. Oh man, I know I talked fast and I was trying my best and everything, but this is important to me.
Yeah.
I think this is important to us, and I really would love to see us, make that impact, man. And I get excited about it. That's why I built this classroom. That's why I do what I do. I could have made more money going to work for somebody else.
Yeah.
But I don't think I would have been happy that way.
Yeah.
And now I'm at a point where it's like, man, I want to make the biggest impact that I can. Even if I'm just facilitating the communication between the people that need to communicate to make this happen, I want to see that happen, man. I want to see that happen. I think that we can do something great. I really do. But do you have anything else you wanted to say before we get out of here?
I'm definitely going to put quite a few of the links in the bottom of how to contact us.
Excellent.
And really, I think, please, absolutely, just like either leave a comment or like reach out to us if you think this is a great idea, and we can figure out how to talk about it.
Yep. Nope. And as always,
think for yourself and anything important to your internet, please.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
See you again.